You're welcome to Just Getting Started, and my guest today is Kevin Doyle, all the way from sunny South County Dublin. And Kevin Doyle is an Olympic target shooter, and we're going to hear all about that shortly. It's a fascinating story. And he is in the process of preparing for the 2028 Olympics. And there's a whole lot of stuff that goes behind getting somebody to the Olympics, and Kevin is spearheading the efforts and the training regime and all of that stuff that goes on in behind the scenes to get somebody to those exalted positions of the podium and so on. And the really interesting thing about Kevin is that he's doing it all from the comfort of his own wheelchair. Now, just in case you think that this is a lovely story about triumph over adversity or somebody overcoming all the odds to get to where they want to go, don't even think about patronizing. Don't even think about bringing those sob stories or those sympathy votes to this conversation, because you'll get a swift kick in the butt. Isn't that right, Kevin Doyle?
It is indeed Nicky Hughes. Yeah, great. She's some introduction. I need you in Los Angeles in 28 for the lead out for the final. That was massive. I don't know if I'm going to be able to live up to it. Yeah, I've had all. It's funny. I was obviously a person who walked around the world until May 28th in 2022, and since then I've had to. I'm in a different world. Sorry, I'm in the same world. I just conduct business differently. That's the way I put it. The thing of the this is one of the things I picked this up from a film as well, or actually it was from Friends. It was Tom Selleck, and he's coming out of just after his wife died, and he's talking to someone, and he's going, that they get the head tilt, and it's like, what's the head tilt? Well, it's like, how are you? And he goes, and my response is the nod. And he goes, what's the nod? It's the doing fine. And I said, that's actually, there's the people who knew me before and the people who knew me after. So before wheelchair, after wheelchair sort of thing.
All right, well,
Some
we
of the,
better, yeah, we better get straight to the point and understand how it came to be that you're in the wheelchair, Kevin. Take us through that story.
yeah, so May 28th in 2022, I was competing in a sailing competition in Dublin Bay, the Ilka Masters National Championships. And it was a fantastic race, probably the best race I've ever had. Great start, probably 15 minutes into it, and I did what we call a tack, and it's basically turning from the wind on one side to the other. And basically what happened is I got two hits, one on the top of the head, which stunned me. There's a boom on the boat, and it actually swings on one side or the other side. And when I was ducking underneath it, it gave me a tap on the top of the head, which sort of stunned me. The boat came over, and I fell back in the water. And as I did, my neck came in contact with the boom, C5 and C6. What I found out after is I have a bone spur. I have arthritis in my spine, and yeah, so the bone spur went into the spinal cord, and I lost. I say I lost use. It's an odd one to try and understand when you say lost use, but everything from where the injury was down gets affected. This is a thing I learnt after, and yes, so I got pulled out.
Okay.
I put things in place. So I'm one of those people who goes, so how do we get out of this, rather
Right.
than, oh God, catastrophe.
Right.
Into
Well, let's just go back to the boat for a second, so
yeah.
we can understand that the listeners can understand. So, the sailboat that you were on, am I thinking it's a large vessel with other people on board, or is it one of the small?
No.
Is it Pico?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I oversimplified, because that's unfortunately one of the things I can do. So it's a single-hander boat. It's the men's Olympic class and also the females Olympic single-handed class. So it's the same boat. The difference being a bigger sail for the men and a smaller sail for the women. That's the Olympic class.
Okay. So
You,
when we see the athletes kind of holding on to whatever ropes they're holding on
I,
and leaning out over the side, is that what you're talking about?
you're absolutely from your calves up are hanging out over you've got toe straps you put your feet into and your toes into, and how you keep the boat flat is by applying pressure. So light winds, you'll be leaning in closer, and then as the wind picks up, which it was on that day, you're singing along and you're literally hanging out over the side by your feet. Everything from your calves up is hanging out over the side. And the more you power up, the more you have to lean out to try and counter it. That's the way it goes. Um,
Okay.
there would have been 30 in our class, so everyone lines up on a line and everyone races together. So it's a very, because it's such a great boat, no one can really get very far ahead. It's a leveler, we'll call it. So its technical skill is what gets you to the front. The boats are all the same. They're measured the same. You're given the same specifications of a boat. So there's no benefit in changing elements of the boat, really. It's down to sailing. So
Yeah.
the better you understand the water, things like that, the more you get out of your boat. Then there's fitness involved, because you've got, on that day we'd probably have about 3 races maybe, and each race is an hour. And yeah, it's a great sport. And we'd had 3 false starts, and I managed to find a good spot on the start line for the next start. And we took off up the beat, we call it, heading for the windward mark. It was down in Sea Point. And it could be, we'd say, half a kilometre to the first mark, which is upwind of you. You're always sailing up into the wind.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's funny. It's like, it was a great bloody day. I wouldn't give it up for anything, because to be able to sail with these guys and women in the different classes, to be around them, there's good crack, there's good rapport. I mean, you're up against the elements. You're literally down on top of the water. The waves will be breaking across you. You know, it doesn't get much more fun than that.
Yeah. And if I remember correctly, as a long-time veteran of 2 sailing lessons in Malahide Marina many years ago, I remember that to tack, as you call it, or to change direction on those boats, is it right that you have to shift your body over to the other side of the boat, and then the sail, which is attached to the boom, comes around behind you? Is that the way it works?
It comes over you. So
It's over you, yeah.
there's 2 sides of the boat, port and starboard. I only learned how to sail at the beginning of COVID, by the way, or right in the middle of COVID. So it's not like I'm 40 years at this. So I was on what they call a starboard tack, which means the wind is coming from the right hand side. So I was up on top of the deck as such, leaning out. I was able to see well upwind to the right hand side. But to turn, the boom actually crosses over and back over your head. In a laser, there's not a lot of clearance, because when you have it pulled what they call block to block, the boom comes down into the boat as well, and you have to duck under it. And I'm 6 foot. I'm still 6 foot, by the way. I'm just 6 foot in a wheelchair now. And so a smaller person will have less, and also a person who's not as heavy as I was would have less difficulty. You're crossing underneath, and what I was actually trying to do was what we call a roll tack. And in a roll tack, you actually use the boat. So when you turn, it slows down. And the idea is you get it up on its side. The boat is what we call heels. You duck underneath it. You step up inside the boom. And as you sit down, you pull in the main sheet. And as you sit, it flattens. But in the flattening motion, the boat gets a little push forward, so you pick up speed again. Normally that happens very quick. In the wind, that boom comes across like a hot snot. Like there's no delay, and you'd be sharp anyway. What caught me was actually, I came onto a wave, so there was waves, swells, and the swell actually caught me off guard with a little bit of a gust, so that the boom came quicker. The boat didn't come around as quick as I thought. And it turns out now that it was a sort of concussion thing. We're talking minor, we're not talking about brain bleeds or anything. But it was that first tap. It was like, and I got stung. The boat came over a lot quicker, and my right leg was still inside what we call the hiking strap, but it was up over my head. And there's only one place for me to go, and that's back into the water. So that's how it happened. It was executed perfectly. I just got a little bit slightly unlucky with the way the wind and the wave came. But yeah, it was. Jesus,
Yeah. Was it that first tap that did the damage?
No, the first tap was the one that slowed me up enough for the second one to take place. If I had got clean underneath the boom, I'd have been up waiting to flatten the boat. Instead, it was a slight. It's like a concussion. I don't know if you've ever. Actually, look, here's the thing: is if you ever stood up into a doorway, if you're 6 foot, you'll have been in doorways before where you stand up and you get that moment of, oh, that hurt, and that took my attention away from what the piece of business was, which was sitting down and flattening. So that second allowed the boat to heel the whole way over, and I never got a chance to catch it. My right leg was still waiting for the cross. And yeah, so it was above me. So I didn't come down in the water flat. I came down head first, if you can imagine. So normally you'd step up inside it. And actually what happened was my leg was up over me and I was that angle down. And when I came down, I just got the bar across the back of the neck. And instantly things started to change. Um,
Okay. And what happened next?
well, the first thing I did was, how do I get back into the boat? How do I write this thing? The boys are gone ahead, but I'm thinking to myself that if I get this right, I'm going to be maximum 45, 50 seconds behind them. So let's get at that. And then I was going, okay, that arm's not working right now. No, so we'll use the left one. Yeah, right, because we need to get to the weather mark because the guys are now 45, 50 seconds ahead. I was continuously evaluating how do I get back in the boat as quick as possible so we can get on after the guys because now I was at the back of the fleet. And on an upwind, I should do better than downwind, to be honest, with my level of experience. So this is what I'm calculating all the time.
And
So
was there an extreme level of pain, or what else did
nothing.
you feel?
Well, you see, I didn't acknowledge anything. That's not part. It's noise. So I mean, I was going to myself. I'm maybe different in some ways. I don't go into all the pain like that. You'd be sore anyway, by the way, because it's a very physical sport. So it's pain is pain. My focus is get back in the boat and get back in the race. It's more actually a slight element of why is that not working? As in my legs. You need to be able to use your legs and arms in the water because I'm wearing a buoyancy aid, by the way, not a life jacket. Small difference, but fundamentally important. Buoyancy aids keep you floating. Life jackets turn you in the water and keep you floating so that your head is up. Now I'm in the water and I don't have arms and legs working properly, we'll call it. That's about the best way I can explain it. So now the waves are coming, the boat's moving around me. I'm caught in the boat because there's a whole lot of control lines, we'll call them sheets, ropes. That's what they are. But I'm wrapped up in all this and I'm inside the sail and things like that. But I have to get clear of this because I have to get the boat back up in my head, but also I can't afford the boat to keep turning over because I'm in it, sort of attached to it still. And if it keeps going, am I getting out? So there's a few different conflicting thoughts. But I'm still going, now the guys are a full minute ahead of me. This is not good. I need to get out here, get the boat back up, and I need to get going. My goal is still to get back in the boat, by the way, and my body is not helping me. That's probably the easiest way to explain it. And it's quite
Yeah.
funny. I think it's quite funny because, I mean, I was always getting back in that boat up to the point where I wasn't. And then my focus changed. And my focus changed as soon as I realized there's an element of possibility that I could drown here. So now I need to focus on the next thing, which is the race now needs to be set one side. And I actually need to get back in this boat. No, now I need to get the safety team in because you need your legs, your arms, and what I was having your head. People from kayaking, I've done whitewater kayaking before, and we do a thing called a roll. And the last thing that comes up out of the water is your head because it's so heavy, and it'll bring you back in if you throw it up. I was actually using my head to throw against waves because the wave had come, but if you've ever played as a kid in the water, the waves will turn you over. And I'm not in a great place anymore because I try to get my right arm to move. It won't move properly. My legs won't kick. They don't do anything properly. Something will work, it won't work. There was a whole lot of confusion, feedback, I suppose, from the limbs. And now I need to make visual contact with the safety boat or a safety boat.
Oh, so there's a
Um,
safety belt. Okay.
well, there was one standing off. The one thing I actually just qualified as safety leader about 2 weeks previous to this. So I understood what the team should have been doing, and I had done a lot of this before. So there should have been someone hanging off somewhere watching the guy who's in the water. They don't follow the guys at the front. They usually you sweep behind. So I was hoping someone was going to immediately run in, if you'll excuse the pun as well, and rescue me. And it didn't happen exactly like that. It took a little bit of time for them to figure out that I was no longer attached to the boat, but I was no longer trying to get into the boat either. And then they came in, and first attempt wasn't successful. They didn't pull me out as quickly. Sorry, they didn't get to pull me out at all because, again, you've got a massive amount of dead weight. Training for safety, most people are able to kick, be able to swim. You've now got a big body in the water, and it doesn't get better when you try to haul that out of the water because I can't help. Things are not, again, limbs are not working perfectly every time. Some stuff is working a bit, some isn't. And that's reflective of spinal injuries too. So First attempt didn't work. Then the national safety leader, I actually said, can you get onto, I think it was 72 was the channel. I said, can you call Philip? Philip's the national safety leader. I trained with him. I'd worked with him. He was on the course. He knew I was there because we'd done a bit of a nod on the way out, and he'd have been smiling going, where's this fella going? He came in. I actually said, can you get on to Philip? And next thing, the person in the safety boat that had a grip of me just told me, said, he's behind you. And at that stage, I knew things were going to be okay. Didn't know what the outcome was going to be, but I knew things were going to be okay. He got two people. He had one guy, Andy, from our boathouse in the George, in the boat already. Got another guy in, and they did the duck and push, which is you push the person down in the water, and as they come up, you use that level of buoyancy along with it to give them a little bit of a pull. They got me in, and I was just on the bottom of the boat. I'd come out of water now when I realised things weren't right, because now I was having to support my whole body, and that wasn't happening. Again, I'm still, by the way, now going, okay, my race is over. I need to go home is what I'm thinking. So again, my focus is I'm getting home. And Philip said, do you want to go? Do you want to get back in the boat? And I looked and I just said, I can't. And he said, grand. So we disassembled the boat, tied it up. And I sat in the bottom of the boat the whole way in. Not by choice, but because when I was trying to get up, my legs wouldn't work right. And my arms wouldn't do what they were meant to do either. And I remember getting out. We got back to the pontoon inside the George, and the boathouse crew were there to meet me, two of them. Two really good guys, Oscar and James. And the boat was pulled in. I got up and shook hands with Philip and said, can't thank you enough. Got out, and then the legs started to go on me, and I thought, this is odd as hell. Had to sit down. I don't know if everyone knew what was going on because I wasn't talking. I was just going home. The boat they said, we'll take the boat. And we walked up. If you've been around the George, the pontoon on the outer where you get brought into, and then you go up a ramp, and then there's up onto the hard deck and back to the clubhouse. I had to keep stopping and sitting down because things weren't working right. That sounds odd, but things weren't working right. My legs wouldn't support me properly. I'd make a couple of steps and they'd go down, like a really slow puncture, if you want, except it was a fast puncture. I got back anyway. The guys got the boat up, and I went in and changed. I had a fierce time changing because I was in neoprene. And neoprene on a good day, the suit works because it's tight. And I had layers because when you're out all day sailing, you can get hypothermia. It's that even in the summer there with the wind blowing, it was only May. It wasn't a sunny day or anything. Trying to get neoprene off on your arms. On a good day, you need strength in your body to get that stuff on and off. So I was using radiators to get the neoprene wrapped around the valves. And I was leaning back to try and use my body. Got it sorted, got dressed. Then I went, have to get the boat now because the boat's down below. Still have to get the boat sorted, but I'm going home. And all this time I'm walking, but I'm going down, and I'm sitting down to... I'll call it now knowing better, was I'm not going to draw attention to myself here because these people start to get concerned. I need to get home, and if they see this, so I'd sit down and start talking away. I got outside in public, and this is where things probably got a little bit more interesting because the guys were saying, I was saying it could be sugar, could be sugar. Let's get me sugar. So we got sugar. Yeah. That didn't really help. And then it was like, oh, carbs. You've been out there for 4 hours or whatever. You need, and I'm going, yeah, got the food. Things still weren't working right. So I went off in for a coffee. What I didn't realise at this stage was some good people. You'd have had James's dad was Coast Guard, and there was phone calls made. Also, Ronan Adams, good friend of mine and the sailing manager, he would have been notified straight away there was an issue. They'd gone and called an ambulance, the devils,
So I'm just going to fast forward, if I may, to the point, Kevin, where you are lying in your hospital bed a day or two later, whatever time frame that was.
Yeah.
And you had what most people would describe as a very sobering message from the surgeon who was about to go to work, right? Just walk us through that point and...
Yeah. It's funny. Looking back on it now, Joe is the man's name. I won't give the full name. He was there with his team, so the anaesthetist had come up already earlier on. This was an emergency job, so I see now. Joe came in and he was going like, we just need to talk about the operation. I was going, look, I mightn't look it. I said, but I do 5K 3 times a week in a forest running. I sail about 4 times a week. You've got a good base there. Don't be worried about it. I played inter-county hurling when I was younger. I'll be deceiving in the level of fitness and stamina. And he said, yeah, no, I said, that's for the anaesthetist. He says, we need to talk about other stuff. And I was going, oh, okay. And he goes, yeah, so this operation is quite a difficult one. We go into your throat. It's going to be an ACDF, they call it, anterior cervical dissection infusion, big name. All I mean is they've got to stabilise the C5, C6. They saw something there.
Which are your vertebrae, right?
Yeah, so we've got cervical, which is the top. Then you've got thoracic and you've got lumbar. The lower down, by the way, the better for you. If you're going to break things, the lower down, because things below the break are what generally get affected. When you get to cervical stuff, there's a hell of a lot below there. It's actually not a good place. Doing it, if I was breaking my neck again, I'd do it lower. I wouldn't break my neck, I'd break something else. Anyway, Joe goes, we're going to go in there, and he says, just to let you know, he says, your neck is shorter than we'd like anyway. And I was going, well, I've got a couple of people I could roll in here and they'd argue that point with you. And he goes, yeah, but he said, when we get in there, we've got to pull artery, we've got to pull your windpipe, your esophagus, all that. He says, so you've got a lot of major blood vessels in there. He says, we can kill you here. He says, if we nick them, we're not going to be able to get in quick enough. We can give you an aneurysm. We can give you a stroke. And I was saying, so if it's that serious, I said, why are we doing it? And he says, well, you're looking at full paralysis from the neck down. And I thought for a second, I went, yeah, that's probably a good, yeah, that makes sense. And then I said, you're a good surgeon, I imagine. He says, yeah, why? I said, because you're a shite salesman. And we all laughed about it, but the reality was, I was delighted, by the way, because he gave me information that I can use rather than fluffing it. And I've seen other people with confusing messages. So I said, look, let's go and do it. And then I thought, I've got to sort out a bit of stuff here, because if all I'm left with, and if you're talking about it, the operation in itself brings in worse complexities than in some ways, because, if we leave it, I get paralysed. At least I'm able to talk, which for some people might be a problem. But if he starts nicking stuff and we have blood problems to the head, I can be left here blinking. And I thought for a second.
Just a second there, right? So you're saying to me that if this operation hadn't gone according to plan, so to speak,
yeah,
all you're left with is the ability to blink.
That could, like, he's after giving me the worst case scenario, so that's what I'm going from. It's not embellishing. He's just told me strokes, he's told me aneurysms, like we're talking, and that's the consequence of the operation. Another consequence is that they do damage the spinal cord and I can't use my body anyway, which we're facing if he doesn't do that. The additional problems he's added in are, you could be left here where, you've got brain damage as well. And I was going, yeah, do you know what? It's a very simple one. I went to the end point, same as I went when I was in the water, getting back in the boat. I was going, okay, so I can see how this works. Because I know I'm the type of person, by the way, that can deal with this. This is not overcoming adversity. This is just a method. This is a mind. This is the way I think. So for me, I just said to him, look, here's the thing. I said, if this goes wrong, I do not want you holding yourself responsible. What I was trying to do too was, people don't work well under pressure, everybody. The last thing I want is a guy going in going, geez, this guy's a nice fella, I'd hate to screw this one up. And the way I was looking at it is, so I need to get things in place. I made some phone calls. So I'd say about in 3 minutes, I'd already realised that I was going to be cremated, which is something I'd never done before. So I was really happy about that. Just being able to figure that stuff out. Then I made a phone call to Declan, one of my friends. Phone call, WhatsApp him. I said, Dec, if I can get you ashes, can you dump them in Dublin Bay for me? And no one knew anyway, by the way, no one knew I was having this operation. None of my sailing friends, they all thought he's at home because they knew that I had gone home afterwards and this is where I was now. But how do you bring this into a person's life and go, this might be the last? Because again, that's not me. I'm not the doom and gloom guy. And Dec comes back going, how would you ever get over yourself? He says, you'll be back in no time. And I went, no, this is a bit more serious. If I got you ashes, would you get them? Because I said, here's the funny thing. I swear, if you can get ashes in a coffee shop within 100 metres of Dublin Bay and flush them, I'm in Dublin Bay anyway. So that's sorted. And he went, smiley face, it'll be done. So that was that done. Then it was the will that had to be sorted. So I messaged people about where the dead are buried and where all the money is hidden, my millions. And then I just went, grand, it's done. And I'd figured out a way that I was going to continue a life afterwards
Okay.
But there was no loss here, by the way.
Yeah, yeah. So, not to get too scientific about it, but the outcome physically is now what?
Yeah,
I hate to label you, Kevin, but what is your condition and what exactly is it called?
I'm incomplete tetraplegic, which means it's actually quadriplegic and tetraplegic. You're talking about limbs. So you've got paraplegic, that would be legs down. My two legs and my left arm don't work properly anymore. My right arm does, and my head. There's other medical stuff because again you've got things going on like your heart. So I've got issues now with normal stuff that used to be easy before. Like I don't want to get gross threatened, but like for bladders, bowels, stuff like that. I've also
Yeah.
got blood pressure issues where a full bladder can be enough to send me into a 186 over 140 heart, which is not seemingly a good thing. But
Mm,
yes,
yeah.
there's that. Then there's also if I turn my head to the left because the cage is in here, I have a steel titanium cage in there, and when I turn my head to the left, I start choking. So it's like someone driving two thumbs into my throat. Breathing is not an easy thing. Oh, and food. So swallowing, I have dysphagia, so the food can start to try and come out here. It could come up, come down. You can choke and all that. Carry on. It's not particularly a nice symptoms, by the way, are what they are, and pain is all the time. But then I'm 24/7 migraine since 2010, so it's just more pain. It's just how you process it.
Yeah.
But that's
Now,
not what it's
this is
about, by the
this is
way. I
the
want to be
part.
clear.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And this is the part where some listeners will go, "Oh, the poor fella, isn't that terrible?
Ah, please turn off
Isn't
the
that
screen.
shocking?" Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
So,
The ones who
we're
want
not
to
even,
stay,
yeah, we're not even going to go there.
it's not
What
necessary.
Absolutely, and I'm really keen to move to the next part of the story, which
Yeah,
is the part where Kevin doesn't lie down and roll over peacefully. He actually finds a new sport. Talk to me
yeah.
about target shooting and how that came about.
Yeah, well, by the way, I was back sailing 48 weeks after the operation. Now, that didn't work out because there's too many complex situations. It's very intense. It's not an easy thing to do because there's a lot of people need to be involved. And I was looking for a hobby. And March last year in 25, I found a hobby, which is shooting. Contacted Target Shoot in Ireland, asked them were there any accessible ranges, and I got a lovely reply back from Siobhan Scarlett, the secretary, and she said, "Look, we'll put you in contact with the National Air Rifle Training Centre, and that's above in Meath in Wilkinstown, and that's the club emblem there." And I went along and I met a guy called Jeff, and that was a Tuesday. And I did a try before you buy. So I was looking for a hobby. I have a bit of time on my hands and went along the first morning and they did pistol, but I was looking at rifle and going, yeah, I like that. And they said, well, sure, you can come back again and try that. So my question was, when? And I said, well, when are you free? I said, well, now and tomorrow and everything. But Thursday was the best one for them. So I went along on the Thursday, enjoyed it, and went home that night. And I had the intention of going back again, but I got a phone call going, look, we've a competition coming up this Sunday. It's an open competition, and we'd like you to enter if you'd like. And I was going, yeah, 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 yeah. No, of course, yeah, no. This is this token gesture is what my new name will be. And I used to joke about that. Hashtag token gestures arrived, and they were going, well, no, there'll be no token gestures in here. It's just the results we saw there. They're interesting. And I went,
Yeah.
all right, okay. So anyway, entered the competition. I drove up from Cork. Was down with Parker for the weekend on the Saturday, and I drove home that evening. I did the pistol in the morning and rifle in the afternoon because my thought process was, we'll try both, and whichever one has the better results is the one that we go with. On a Sunday afternoon, got a phone call in the car going, just to let you know, you won both. And I was going, yeah, 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 yeah. I'm the only guy the guy in the field. And they're going, no, no, he actually beat able-bodied people. And so I'm going, right. And what were the results? And they said, well, the rifle was 535, the pistol I think was 480. And I said, right. Well, sure, thanks very much. And they said, well, look, we'd like to sit down with you. And I was going, yeah, no, I'll be in touch. Well, no, will you be able to come next week? And I was going, yeah, 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 sure, of course. So back on the Tuesday. That was a sort of a more grown-up discussion, to be honest, than I was expecting, because they said, look, there's a route here. Your numbers were we wouldn't have expected anybody to be doing that. We've people between 5 and 10 years, and they're able to shoot at that. You just came in like that. There's all of this available, and I was going like, where, what exactly? So it's World Championships, European Championships, and um, then I said, so what about the Olympics? You have to throw something in there, and they're going, yeah, 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 yeah. And I was going, so how long would it take to how many hours? Whatever. Well, about 10,000 hours is what you'd need. And I was going, so when do we start? And it was like, well, we could start on Thursday. So back on the Thursday. About a month later, we've had a different discussion. And the different discussion is, yeah, you're a little bit different because it's not 10,000 hours we're looking at here now. Those numbers have come up with 2 days a week for 4 weeks, and now you're at a higher number. Again, win the next competition, and they're giving me a medal and they're going, you're going to be winning a lot of these. And I was going, yeah, but I'm not really, there's no one I'm really competing against except the able-bodied people here.
Yeah.
And they're going, well, that's why the Paralympics, but we need to get you into what they call classification. So I was going, where's that? And they were going, well, there's a couple of different places, but Serbia would be the one that's the closest in timing.
Can you just take me back to the actual setup? Okay, so you've already talked about your physical state. So what is the actual setup for target shooting? So
Yeah.
describe how that is set up, how you set yourself up with the rifle, and describe what you're shooting at and the tolerances involved.
Well, I'll start with the shooting because I mean I'm not the most exciting part of this whole process. So the sport itself, I shoot at a target that's a half a millimeter in size. Currently I'm an air rifle shooter, so air rifle,
A
and
half a
it's
millimeter is the target.
yeah, and it is, yes. So well, that's the bullseye. There's a bigger target around it, but I have in the competitions I'm going to be going into with the Olympics, I have to be hitting that target 60 times out of 60. But I have to
So
hit them with more precise. Hitting the target's not enough. So if we were to look at the target, you've got the 1 ring, the 2, the 3, the 4, the 5, the 6, the 7, and into the very center one is the 10. But we also use decimals now. So you've got 10, so 1, 1.2, 1.1, 1.2, and so on to 1.9, then into 2. The half a millimeter has 10 circles inside in it as well. And you start at 10.0 and then you get to 10.9. Now, I have to be in to get into a final in any competition that I'm going to be going to. I have to be hitting 10.5 and above. The difference between a 10.5 and a 10.4 is 0.05 of a millimeter, we'll say. So
goodness me.
that's the accuracy at 10 meters. We don't use scopes. The rifles aren't allowed it. This is and by the way, this is a sport that's, I think, 1890 something is where it started. It's not new. And it's just the able-bodied version of it. It has been there all along. And we're in what we call World Shooting Parasport, WSPS, and it's the Paralympic side of it. So I have the same rifle. I started out a little bit differently than I'm going to be ending up. So I didn't have all the gear. I'm sitting in a power wheelchair. I bought a bike stand from B&Q and I stick my spring. So my left arm doesn't work anymore. Normally an able-bodied person, they stand, they hold the rifle this way, they turn their head that way, which I won't do so we don't have medical emergencies. And it's held like that and they turn their head. You're looking through a hole of a millimeter in the back. And when you do, you see a circle in the front and then you center the circle of the target, but you don't get to see the bullseye. There's no scopes. We call them iron sights. It's your eyesight is what you're using. There's no embellishment allowed. You can get a lens. You started off with glasses, and now I have a little monocle of a thing that sits there because my glasses give me misreadings, and that's what you aim for. You can see
Yeah.
your heart beating in there. Every movement, by the way, is your enemy. It's an interesting sport. It's possibly the highest precision Olympic sport that there is when you're looking at tolerances of zero point 0.5 of a millimeter, 0.05 of a millimeter between the rings. For example, the gold and silver medal were decided by 0.05. That was what it came down to after all the competing. That's how close it was between silver and gold. So it's
How do you stay focused when you're on the shot, so to speak? So you're shooting 60 times. I mean, it must be very easy to get distracted and how do you do that?
we see. I don't see it. I don't. see the distraction thing. This again could be down to me with the sailing. It was focused on a thing. Getting out of the water was focused for me. The happiest place I am is what we call a shot process. Everyone has a shot process, and the shot process is the steps. So if you think about it, we're given 1 hour 15 in qualifying to make 60 shots. Divide that what way you want. I'm not going to give away any secrets here, but mine is 1 minute, and within 1 minute there are so many steps I take. The outcome is I have a screen beside me, and on the screen it shows where the pellet landed. It'll give you some metrics back on how far from the bullseye it was. For me, I use that as a data point. So there's no good shot, there's no bad shot, there's just the shot. The outcome allows me to adjust what I've done in my process to bring it more aligned into the perfect shot, which is a 10.9. Once I'm in that process, all I'm doing is executing the process. I'm totally unaware. And I mean, to give you an explanation, in Wales, when I competed, I actually had to get tipped on the shoulder to be told that I was finished, because I don't count. We would say you don't count numbers, you don't acknowledge numbers, because that allows emotion in. Bringing emotion in is not a good thing because there's the downs. A bad shot is potentially a feeder into your next shot. But when I'm there is no previous shot, there is no after shot, there is just this shot. And within that shot, there are so many steps. And if each step is processed effectively, the outcome is the outcome. The number, by the way, is largely irrelevant. It just tells me how well I executed my process. So I take massive satisfaction out of for me, a gold medal is perfect execution of the process. The outcome, by the way, is going to be the outcome. And it's funny enough, when you look at it that way, the results would show that actually, if you leave the outcome to itself and your process is strong enough, the results just follow.
Yeah, well, having spoken to you a few times before recording today, one of the most fascinating parts of this whole story is the fact that you have managed to systemize that process. The process that you're talking about of eliminating external noise and being focused on the outcome. Walk us through that. And my assumption is that you came to the realization that this is something that you've repeated throughout your life, this whole process. Join the dots for us here.
Yeah, so I mean, I've always liked the processes side of things. I'm probably a linear minded. I just see a line towards something and then I go, will it work or won't it work? If it does, we execute it. If I do and it doesn't execute properly, I adjust and I re-execute. I mean, the training I do here, I train my process. I train between 6.5, 7 hours a day. And in that, I train my process every day. So I don't go to the shooting range even to try and find myself. I train here so that when I get to the shooting range, I can train with the live rounds, which again, when I go into the competition, I train again I shoot with the live rounds. But my process is continuously executed, refined, executed, refined, executed, and refined. The more I leaned into this, was coming home, it's funny, one of the training things, the guys give you all this information and then you start joining dots. And I heard about this thing called 0 point. And 0 point it's what we call, it's a natural line. So for example, if you were standing, I'm going to go back to the able-bodied person thing because it's easier for them to understand how they do it because we have a few complications. The rifle is always pointing somewhere naturally. If you just gave a rifle to someone and you said, just stand like that, support the rifle and look, your body, without any inputs, without any muscle inputs, it's actually aligning perfectly somewhere. And what they try and do is create the 0 point so that when your body is perfectly aligned, the sight is perfectly looking at the target. Reason being, under pressure, things don't get better. If the rifle is not aligned properly, you'll use an arm to bring it into play, but you can't control. And if you think about it, 60 shots and there's 0.05 of a millimeter in variances between rings. You have noise, you've got people shouting, cheering, you've got a whole lot of different elements feeding in. You can't repeat the muscle movements perfectly so you can hit that target perfectly. So what we try and do is we try and train for the 0 point so that when nothing is being input, you are perfectly aligned with the target. And I was coming home in the car going, if I roll that back a little bit and take it away from shooting, there's a 0 point for people. We've all seen people, I know I have, where pressure doesn't make them much better. When you've been in work environments and when the pressure comes on, there's always one person you just don't want to be beside because they don't deal with it well. It could be they go into high dose screaming, they could do with the blade, all that carry on. So I've always seen that, for example, the decision in the hospital, the operation, it was a 0 point for me. This is what's going to be done. Let's get to it. I figured out the way, the process to survive through that. We call it surviving. Um, the problems with whatever I've dealt with in life, in business, even back when I was in IT infrastructure, we call it back in my 30s and stuff like that. You'd be putting 1,000 bodies into 2 buildings over 3 years. The 0 point there is we have a process we can rely on that when we execute it, we implement stages of projects. Project management, same thing. The outcome is the outcome. The process supports the outcome. The closer aligned people are with the process, the more the outcome becomes a reality. It's the way I think. So in shooting, for me, the process is simple. If I align my body perfectly relaxed, and that rifle is pointing at the bullseye perfectly, if I don't do anything, it's always going to shoot there. So my job is to make sure that I am perfectly zeroed every time. And in the way I deal with things in life, in business, once I'm zeroed, perfectly aligned, not trying to, for example, if it was a project management IT job, we're putting in a cloud something or other, it's going to cost X amount. Once I don't start trying to reduce things, add things, and let the process that's been defined work, and we only talk about what elements are necessary to get that work done, and we get the people who actually want that done, it gets done. It's a simple alignment for me. I thought
Yeah.
I thought everyone thought like this, seemingly not, but yeah, why make it more complex? That was something that was said. I'd probably bring simplicity to complex situations.
Okay. So it seems like that there's a very real world, particularly business world, because that's what I'm familiar with, application to the system that you're doing. So you're calling it 0 point.
Yeah,
There's a very real world application or set of applications for this
yeah.
system. And
Yeah.
and how would you describe it? Like, are there steps involved? Are there, so if I was a decision maker or a CEO or whatever, listening to this, I'm asking myself, how could this apply, or how could we use Kevin's skills to help us in our business?
I mean, I believe there are. I mean, they're very simple transfers if you want. The 0 point for me, I lock in a shot. So the shot has to be as close to a 10.9 as possible. The process supports that shot. Putting a cloud, for example, e-commerce platforms, I've done a couple of those project management wise. Lock in the outcome, which is the website, if you want to call it that, or if 1,000 people need to go into a building, the outcome is the 1,000. You break it down into the manageable steps. So I lock in the outcome. I lock the process that's going to deliver the outcome. Then the environment is locked. So the environment's a fierce important one for me. When I'm in my shot process, there's nothing allowed in there other than information that relates to my shot. It's irrelevant about where I am, who I'm with in a shot. It's irrelevant how much noise there is. That's irrelevant. It doesn't allow me process the shot. In business, when I'm trying to deliver a project, we will have how complex decisions there are, but that doesn't feed into me getting the project over the line. So that's not what I want. Input's relevant to how we're going to deliver. There's no hierarchy. There's no ranking. It's basically everyone's goal is to get the project completed. But you have to know, we sanity check the outcome first of all. If I think I'm a 10.9 shooter and I'm nothing other than a 4.3, that doesn't align. No more than if the project couldn't be delivered anyway. There's no process behind a failed outcome supports a good outcome, if that makes sense. So once you have the environment locked, it's feedback loops, and feedback needs to be very well regulated. You need the people to understand. In shooting, nobody has discussions with me about the outcome. I don't have them with myself either on, oh, well, if I change my position, if I squeeze a little bit tight. Every muscle in the shooting, every muscle that you use puts a tremor into that sight. And if you consider your heartbeats visible in the sight, you can move from a 10.5 even to a 10 or a 9. So you don't allow any of that noise in. Similarly in business, if you're trying to, I don't know, put a brand new infrastructure element in place, only discussions around getting the infrastructures. We used to do stand-up meetings, for example. They're by name because they're not comfortable. It's not a sit-down 2 hour talk. Inputs are, what do we do? It's a Scrum methodology that I actually was a PM as well, so I've used it. What did we do yesterday? What are we doing today? And what are the stoppers? They are very valuable inputs. These have been tried and tested, but actually I didn't need to know about Scrum to realize I'm naturally aligned with that anyway. If it's one of the projects I would have worked on was Philips, I was the MIA IT manager, and we were doing centralizing for accounting services throughout Europe as one of the projects. You have to get the discussions all about getting so many people at phase stages back into one centralized location. The politics aside, the goal is to get them in there. That's when we start realizing there's financial benefits. What does that take? Well, it takes getting all the systems in place, getting the buildings set up, getting the people in there. There are processes behind it. It's the feedback loops that get you closer to it rather than noise about, well, this is very complex. We'll have all these problems, all of that. So in the shooting, same thing. I don't allow anybody discuss anything with me outside of the shot. I don't discuss anything with me inside the shot. And then the beautiful thing I love is 100% accountability. I'm responsible for everything. I'm responsible for the day I went into the water. I was responsible for getting myself out of there. I was responsible for figuring out how to live a life if things went a different way and I ended up totally locked in where all I could do was blink. I'm responsible for every shot that I take. I'm responsible for the environment that I allow or have and maintain around that shot. I own all of those elements, and none of them are noisy. In the shot, by the way, my category now is SH2, they call it. It's basically shooting, but actually it's also lower limb and upper limb impairment. To be honest, it's upper limb impairment. I'll be shooting against people who can walk, but they're upper limb. You could have amputees, for example. I don't allow the noise in about I've got the classification. Let's park that. Now I'm here to shoot. The shooting is, again, that's a feedback loop. The noise is around how do I get a better shot, not, oh God, and my body is trembling and my legs are gone spastic, my arms gone. None of that matters. And in business execution, respectfully, none of that matters either if we want to get the objective of bums in seats, financial gains, cloud infrastructure put in place. We will all have challenges. The outcome is the outcome, and I'm so happy because I own all of this. I don't have to defer my decisions to other people. Thank God. That was one of the challenges I had in hospital, actually.
So this is your system. Am I right in saying this is called 0 point, is it?
I call it 0 point OS. 0 point is a word that's taken from shooting. If you Google it, you'll find it there, and it's got to do with this natural point of aim, where your body naturally points. And I call this 0 point OS because Kevin, always point towards outcome. Okay. And then I find the way to deliver the outcome. And the elements within the process I mentioned, they are elements that I defined and have found that they have worked in every situation. That is, we're not talking about will I put skimmed or non-skimmed milk in the coffee. Some of these have been life decisions. Some have been very financial business, multinational level decisions. But they've all had the positive outcome.
Okay. The Olympics.
Yeah.
Is that a pipe dream? Are you hoping to get the Olympics? Is it written in stone? What's the situation there? When is it? What do you need or what do you have to do to get it? Are you in control of the process?
No, and this is actually there's a bigger challenge in some respects. So Los Angeles 28 is where the Olympics are going to be held. To get to the Olympics, I have to go to competitions and win what they call quota places. To get to those competitions, I have to go to competitions which qualify me for those competitions, which register minimum qualifying scores. To give an example, this year, the World Championships are being held in Korea, and there's a World Cup being held in the United Arab Emirates. Those will be quota places. So if you finish in the top 3 in those competitions, you get an Olympic quota place. Nobody is allowed, not just me, but no one's allowed to show up at those competitions unless you have what they call a registered qualifying score, a minimum qualifying score. In my competition, 614 is for what we call standing, and then 619 for prone. Those are my two categories. And to get to those, I've got to go to Serbia. I'm doing the leg work, if you'll excuse the pun, which is I train like it's a 40-hour week as it is anyway. I can only do that, but I have to raise money because of the situation. If I was able-bodied, I could jump into the back of a plane. I go with a bag on my back. Now, there'd be a slightly bigger team, but there'd be a bag on my back. I'd have my luggage. I'd have my shooting gear, there's quite a bit of it. And I'd head on to a competition. If necessary, I could sleep on a park bench, and I'm not being facetious about that. That's where it's at. Where I'm at, I've got more stuff because I'm already in my power chair. I've got to bring a shooting chair, which is a wheelchair. And then I have to bring people with me who are going to take care of me as well. So I'm at it's not disadvantage is not the word for it, but actually I have things differently. To enable that, 90,000 a year is what the budget needs to be so that I can qualify and compete each year at the competitions to get me to the Olympics. We're not, I think they call them carded sports, so there's no funding for our sport. There will be when I win gold, by the way, in Los Angeles. Then there will be money made available for the next 4 years. But it's no one puts money on that.
Yeah. Are you at Olympic standard now? Are you above it? Or are you below it? Or where are you at?
Well, my training scores at the moment would have put me 23rd in the Olympics.
Okay.
And I'm less than a year shooting.
In the last Olympics. Okay. Right.
Yeah. So the scores are there. You see, again, the scores are largely irrelevant. I hate to say that. They're relevant, obviously, because you can't get into. We have to be looking at scores, but that deviates from the work because now we're only going after scores. The work that's going into it right now, with the training, with the sports psych, all of that sort of thing. That's what's really where the good work is so that we can achieve the scores. By the way, 623 wouldn't get me into the final, and I need to be in finals so I can win. If you think about it, if I can explain, for the last Olympics in the standing competition, they take the top 8. So we'd say 636 was the top score, and then the guy who scraped in at the bottom was 632.8. The next 8 places were all 632 decimals. That's how tight this is. So the training has to be done. It's not a thing of if we got the money behind us. If I wasn't doing the work with my coach Ray, it wouldn't be happening. But the funding, without the funding and without the money, I can't get to these competitions and I can't compete. So I'll be the best secret that ever was made. I'll be the guy who's scoring the Olympic class scores sitting in a training centre shooting. That's what will happen.
So you've obviously risen through the ranks of target shooting very quickly, much quicker than normal people, shall we call them?
Yeah. It was notable, by the way. Last year there was 2 significant ones. There was a UK-Ireland shoot where I was up against able-bodied, and that was in 4 months from starting, and I got silver in that. And then I went to the Welsh International where I got silver as well. So all these steps are proving that at the time the shooting was enough to win those positions. But it's the process is what wins, not the scores. And medals, honestly, who's going to care afterwards? I need to go and dominate, and to do that, I've got to be winning Europeans, Worlds. I've got to be at these competitions so that I can compete against the best. There is no one in Ireland, you see. This is the challenge too. So I don't get to shoot against 8 other guys in my category. I've got to go abroad for that so that I can compete in that environment.
Yeah. So you must be the darling of the, is it the Paralympic committee here in Ireland, or what's the
Target Shooting Ireland is our governing body. I mean, do you know what? Without them, you've got Liam as the president. Like Liam and Siobhan are on the executive there, and I've got Ray. I've got people, really good, passionate people about the sport. Their passion is met with my passion. My passion to deliver is met by their passion of the sport. And I've got my partner, of course, she's my loader as well, which is an interesting dynamic. Standing on a start line, if you kind of visualize that, she loads the rifle for me because it's actually sitting on a spring. Not to make it sound too boring, but my left arm isn't working anymore, so it sits. My rifle now is replaced by a spring, and she loads the rifle for me. So literally, I just sit. I get the easy part, in my opinion, because I'd say her nerves are crazy. She can see the screen with the results, but she's not in the shot with me, so she's there all the time. We were in Novi Sad as well. She's
Yeah.
fantastic. I will not have her as a carer, by the way. She's a carer in terms of from the shooting perspective. I'm still Kevin. I didn't need one before. I won't need one after. So Anna is my assistant
Yeah,
and
her
loader.
bedside manner, so to speak, at the shooting range must has to be top class, because if she's emitting the wrong energy, well, then you're going to pick up on that potentially. Well, maybe
Well,
you don't because
you're
you're.
not wrong there either. It's been mentioned to me that that can be a complex one. Anna, in her own right, by the way, is an athlete. She's a dragon boat paddler, so she's training with the national squad at the moment. She has her own defined sport, so she's already in the headspace where this is something she acknowledges. It's not someone coming in from the background going, "Is his blood pressure up? Do we need to get the tablets for him?" Although she's actually going. After the Welsh one, actually, she said my heart was in my mouth because there were some of the shots and I was questioning. Now, the thing is, she's standing right beside me. I don't know she's there. How can that happen? On one competition, when we finished the competition, the coach said to me, "Did you see the note?" And I said, "What note?" And actually, he had passed the note right up beside where I'm shooting. When I'm shooting, I don't know anyone's there. It's not part of my process. But
Yeah,
Anna, yeah, I'd say her heart's in her mouth watching some of the shots because she is counting. But
yeah.
then that's grand. They're allowed to do that. That's not something I do. I don't watch that.
Kevin, this may sound like a ridiculous question,
Go for it.
but what do you need? What do you need, and what are you looking for anything? And if you were, what would that be in order to help you to get your goals? Because as we said at the very start, the last thing you want is a sympathy vote. The last thing you want is a cursory 50 quid. Well, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but that's not what you're looking for, right? So what exactly do you need?
So the team is around me at the moment, so I don't need additional people. So, I've got Liam, Siobhan is there, Daniel, Ray. So I have a good team around me with Matt and Jeff as well, and Anne, of course. It's financial support, but I'm not looking for handouts here because I actually believe that there's potentially a value uh, handover if you want. I want someone who, first of all, I do need the money. Like, there's no way of getting around that. But I've never been someone who can take something without giving something. And I will want to see them getting something before they ever go, how can I give you something back? But there is something I think, because I've worked in industry, different ones, different positions, different roles. I would love someone, particularly one that's totally aligned, totally gets what it is, but also is totally not sucked into. If they can see Kevin without the wheelchair, right now you can't, bar the lovely headrest I have, we could have a conversation and you won't realise I'm in a wheelchair. I definitely don't want someone to feel sympathy, but I do want them to go, yeah, this is something I could get behind because this is something actually aligns very much with the way I think, my business thinks. And the answer is yes, we need to look after this in some way, shape, or form. Let's have another discussion about that. But actually, what's getting in your way of delivering, Kevin, so that we can talk to you about what's getting in our way of delivering, and that there's a match. There has to be a match, and unfortunately, it can't be 50 or 60 quid because while that money, by the way, is hard got, that's not something that can work here. Um, not at the costs. The costs are. This might sound mad too. Why are the costs so high? Flying, for example, I fly business class out of necessity, not out of the luxury lifestyle. So my legs and arm are spastic. If you put me into an economy, I couldn't fly Ryanair unless I was flying in the hold because even the clothes I wear have to be loose because they trigger muscle spasms. When that kicks off, I'm flapping all over the place. So I need space. So it's a require. It's I'd love to be able to fly economy. It'll make things
Okay.
easier.
Well, right. Well, let's call a spade here.
Yeah.
If somebody, if a business or a supporter wanted to get on board with Kevin Doyle Inc., shall we call it,
Right.
um, what is the payback? What is that value that you're talking about?
Well, I've worked in things like change management projects where for IT is the glasses I wear in those projects to help people. I've seen enough organizations who have challenges with mindset within the business, even though everyone's aligned, they're not particularly. I can work with them I'm not going to be designing a plan, but if someone sits with me and asks me how things work within mine and aligns that with what they have and builds their own plan, I don't like the word insultant. I'm not a I've had too many, and any business owner has had too many, and the value that's so I don't want to be one of, I actually want to be part of something, because whoever's getting on board with me, I want them to be part of this. I don't want it sterile, siloed. I nearly want them to be going, Kevin, I want the top guy going, how did breakfast go this morning? Going, the milk, there was no good milk. I want them at that level where it's a hand and a glove, not a sterile situation, because I want to be 100% involved with someone's business, and I want them to be 100% involved with Kevin the shooter. So I'm looking for them too to see how that works, because I can tell you what my mind works like or how I see things, and we can extrapolate how that can be used within their businesses. Sometimes people who think that they're like, I've been around enough leadership programs within businesses too to realize a lot of it is delivered off of slide decks. I can tell you how it works on a life continuous. If I was to explain what happened in that room with that surgeon that morning, that's not a slide deck. But there are elements in that, by the way. And again, if we could take it as information rather than the box of Kleenex and this is really a tough decision, there was nothing tough about that. There is nothing tough about the business decisions if you look at them in the environment that I do. And that's a way of thinking, not a ways of working. Oh, I hate, again, those are consultant terms that were brought in. The way of thinking for me is more important than the way of working, because the work will fit in around the process thought. So I could see how that could work. I could see how I've done it in business before. So I can see how it's not a hard fit for businesses from now. Business hasn't changed.
Yeah. How do people get in touch with you?
Well, I have a website I set up now. Big caveat there, by the way. It's currently in a redesign phase, and it's as simple as, I call it a duck. It's Kevin Doyle Olympian. Kevin Doyle Paralympic.com. If you type in Kevin Doyle Paralympian, you'll find me in Google. It has all the answers. I won't give you out my mobile phone if you don't mind at the moment, but there's a little bit of a story behind the website there. So if they go and look at that, and if you send an email to info@ or kevin@kevindoyleparalympian.com, yeah, you'll get a reply from me anyway. Or if you touch Target Shooting Ireland, they know more about me than, yeah, we'd be well integrated there. So yeah, those are ways to connect.
Great. Well, Kevin, I've really enjoyed our discussion this morning. It's now 7:35. It's been an early morning slot, but you're an early morning riser, so
Well, I'm going to go train now after this. So I mean, this for me was I'm delighted to meet you again. Need to say, I enjoy these chats.
Yeah, and I have to say it's a real privilege to get to know you, and your story is riveting. It's invigorating. It's inspiring. It's all of the above. But the bit that I love most is that you don't identify with the wheelchair. You identify with where you're headed and the process by which to get there, which is the really fascinating part of the story for me. So thank you for
Well,
sharing
thank
with
you.
us this morning.
Thanks
Yeah.
very much, Nicky.
And I'm sure we'll be in touch. I'm sure this is not the last we'll hear of Kevin Doyle. So I hope everybody's
Watch this
enjoyed it.
space.
Yeah, and we'll track your progress very closely over the coming months. Good luck, Kevin.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.